in pristine
really?
condition. Yeah, there was a guy, he had, like 50
not one of
years,
those men.
and he was trying to sell them at the pawn shop.
And they're worthless.
It's worthless.
We'll
way
take your
too
word
many
for
of
it.
them.
We're coming over and checking under your mattress. No, but back actually to, so are there, can people learn how to negotiate? Is that part of what you teach?
I do. I do,
Yeah.
actually. I do that in my sales class, and I'm actually toying with the idea of doing a startup boot camp, which will be open
Really?
to Santa
Yeah.
Barbara as we get closer.
Oh, please tell us
we
when
can
that happens.
Talk
Yeah.
about it on the radio. I think it's a learned. Listen, you can have that inclination, the lack of fear that I had as a 12-year-old. That's hard to learn, but you could certainly learn how to get comfortable in that skin. And what I say to entrepreneurs is, you need to do 3 things to be a successful entrepreneur. My humble opinion: be able to sell, you need to be able to network, and you need to be able to negotiate. If you can't do those 3 things, that's okay, but somebody on your team has to be able to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forgo those 3 things. You will not succeed.
And if they don't have one of the negotiators,
Find somebody who does.
They can call you and you can step in.
They can go to boot camp, yeah.
Or go to my boot camp.
Do you still have baseball cards?
So I don't know if the listeners care to hear
Yeah.
this, but the last fire that we had, not the one in Montecito, we had evacuated and taken those cards 3 times, and there were some really valuable. I think it would have been a loss to the hobby to lose some of those cards, because there's some really unique things. And so I talked to my brother-in-law and I said, "Dude, we're going to lose this collection. It's going to go. I'm getting nervous." And so we sold a lot at auction. We sold a lot.
You know
of
what's
it.
interesting when you evacuate, and I've been doing a lot of that since I've lived in Montecito, is what you pack in that car.
Isn't
What
it
is
true?
the first thing? And because I know some people and they're packing their photo albums. I pack my tile collection, which weighs so much. Well, of course, the 3 dogs go
But
in there first, which is most
You
of the
made
car.
with your own hands, so it's
No.
important
I
to
have
you.
tiles going back to the 12th century, and they.
Ooh, you want
so
to save
it's
those?
It's really heavy, though.
But you probably looked at it like I did. This would be a loss to the to the industry, to the people
and
that
I've been
collect.
collecting them
Yeah.
since I was in my 20s.
Right.
Which is just a few months
Last
ago.
year?
Yeah.
I was last year. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll have more questions for you. And if you want your question read on the air, please go to coworkradio.com. You're listening to KZSB 1290 AM. John Greathouse, thank you for
Yes,
joining us.
thank
We'll
you.
see you next week. UCSB Arts and Lectures presents acclaimed New York-based theater company Bedlam, performing St. Joan April 19th and Hamlet April 20th at Campbell Hall. 4 actors play 49 characters in this fresh, kinetic look at William Shakespeare's and George Bernard Shaw's most famous creations. The adrenaline-fueled performances bring iconic figures vividly to life in 2 riveting, unexpectedly funny, stripped-down stagings over 2 transformative evenings. Tickets at artsandlectures.ucsb.edu.
The Central Coast may seem laid back, but when it's time to work, no one works harder, including the bank that's grown up here. Montecito Bank and Trust offers customized lending and banking for all businesses, big and small. It's harder than offering one-size-fits-all solutions, but it's the right thing to do. And here, getting things right is a way of life. Montecito Bank and Trust. Behind every great community is a great bank. Montecito.bank. Member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Dan Farrick, Managing Director of the Impact Hub Santa Barbara. Come visit us and find out why co-working spaces are booming. Our 2 locations in the Funk Zone and downtown Santa Barbara offer private offices, permanent desks, and a variety of co-working memberships starting as low as $60 a month. Mention Co-work Radio when you book our tour, and we'll give you 10% off your first 6 months of membership. Join a community where you can live and work smart. Go to impacthubsb.com or call 284-0078 to find out more.
Hi, it's Catherine Raymock. Are you buying or selling a home? See Compass Realtor Terry Ryken. I went to Terry because of his reputation and experience, but was quickly taken by his genuine enthusiasm. It's that combination that truly sets him apart. Terry specializes in properties in Montecito, Hope Ranch, Santa Barbara, and Santa Ynez Valley, and has 39 years of experience as an agent and broker. There are so many realtors to choose from, but only one Terry Ryken. Find out for yourself. Google search Terry Ryken. Welcome back to Coworker Radio here on KZSB 1290 AM. I'm Catherine Raymock.
And I'm Jane Walker-Wood.
And we are a show all about the modern entrepreneur. Each week we interview two company founders. We're going to introduce you to Neighbor Tim here from Neighbor Tim's Barbecue in just a second. But I do have a quick announcement. We had an interview last week with a couple of very talented young men from Loca Fresh. And they deliver straight to your door from the farmer's market. So if you can't make the farmer's market, they'll deliver, and you can get 25% off of your shipping on your order by using the code COWORK. So you can order online
free shipping.
Today. Free shipping.
25% off your order.
With the code. So free shipping and 25% off with the code COWORK. Place your order at Loca, that is like local without the A, without the L, locafreshfoods.com. Check it out.
We are here with Neighbor Tim from Neighbor Tim Barbecue. He doesn't want to give us his last name, but that's okay.
And, good afternoon.
He specializes in slow-smoked Texas-style brisket and Carolina pork shoulder using a custom-made Texas-style offset smoker. And this company is part of the huge and quickly growing $2.7 billion food truck industry. How are you doing, Tim?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
We were just talking about the history of food trucks, which really isn't very long when you look at it. And so you got in sort of on the beginning of things. And the idea was what to begin with? Did it grow? Did you always know you wanted a food truck, or was it?
No, the idea really just started on my porch. You know, I was always the guy that had everybody over and did the barbecues at my place. And so it just started from just like the backyard.
And did you hear about the food truck industry and thought I can do that? Or
I did. It was really more focused on the barbecue, the food part, the serving part, and just the enjoyment. And then I got to thinking, well, how do we get bigger? How do we put our name out there more? And it was just, well, let's get a food truck, and that'll get our name out, and we'll get more events, and that's how it's progressed.
Why a food truck versus traditional catering or a restaurant?
Well, a traditional restaurant, financially, I wasn't in it. I didn't have the money or the capital or, any collateral to put a loan against. So a food truck was really a nice way to get in, and then being able to use that to get catering jobs for weddings, birthday parties, corporate stuff, things like that. So really more just to promote.
We want to talk a little bit about the local regulations, because it's been in the news a lot about food trucks, and of course it is new and changing as we speak. But you have something interesting. You actually, so your food truck does not travel necessarily unless you're out doing catering, which it will do. But you are in one location, and it's out at Fatty's. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a brewery called Captain Fatty's out by the CHP, ironically. So be careful when you do come. But yeah, so Captain Fatty's, Los Caneros on Saturdays from like 12 to 3. And I've just found, TikToking around town, selling, plates here and there inconsistently. Really wasn't the business model that I wanted. And so I thought, well, let's sell it at a brewery on Saturday, noon to 3. Every Saturday, people will find out that that's what we do, and consistency and reliability is really the trick here. So.
And from there, 90% of your business really is catering from that. That's kind of like your anchor, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. The food truck really is like, our second ingredient in our business model. Catering jobs is really financially what helps support the business, and then supports my beautiful wife and 2 boys now.
So. Now, before the show, we were talking about there's a new study called Food Truck Nation, which is the largest ever study done on this industry. And shocked that the industry has grown 400% since 2014. But one of the other things that caught me is on average in the U.S., there's 45 separate government-mandated procedures, which will take you 37 business days and almost $30,000. Now, that's on average in the U.S.
That's about right. You could almost say that's annual, too. So,
wow, okay.
So what's happening locally in Santa Barbara? The food truck industry sort of was, my observation of it, thought that they were being sort of slammed by some new city regulations, city and county regulations. Yeah. And what are they, and how did that change?
Well, basically there were none. There were no ordinances. There were nothing on the books for the city. So, I get it. They've got to come up with something to regulate, and that's their position. So they came up with some. Our industry didn't like it, so the negotiation happened back and forth. And so now they've come up with these particular ordinances, which went into effect October of last year. And we've seen some people leave. Close down and leave. There were a few, and we've seen a couple evolve into restaurants all of a sudden. So, there's a balance to it all. I don't get all huffy and puffy and, fight the big man about it. It's just it is what it's going to be. As a citizen, as a business, we're the customer to local governments. I don't think that was the vibe on this particular instance, but I digress with that, but that's why I stick to, our stint, Captain Fatty's 12 to 3 on Saturdays, and that's our deal.
Which really complements their industry because they're selling beer and don't have any food.
Yeah, correct.
Now, the other thing that I would have thought, as if I were a restaurant owner, I wouldn't want a food truck on my street. But contrary to that, according to this study, it actually increases how much the local restaurants make if they have a food truck on the street. Why would that be?
Well, it's foot traffic. When everybody works together to bring feet onto the street to come out and eat something, it all pans out and it's all positive. So, there's somebody that's going to want a $6 food truck burrito. There's somebody that's going to want a $15 fast dine, and so on and so forth. So, but in the heat of the moment, everybody's got rent, everybody has labor to pay, and so you do get kind of caught up in it a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's providing a service to the people, serving food.
I just got back from Austin, Texas.
That's fine.
And I got to tell you, absolutely booming industry with the food trucks. And it's sort of exciting. There's whole blocks that are just food trucks. And we found ourselves liking one in particular and going back. And, of course, they're open all hours. Sure. And that probably has to do with the size of the population, I'd guess. But anything like that you could see happening in Santa Barbara?
In parts of the year, probably, when tourism is higher, if the tourism boards and whatnot promoted it to get it to the people that are in Orange County and LA up here visiting, it'll take some time and some branding.
Do we have any food truck events where we just show off all our food trucks?
Currently, no. In a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, there were a couple instances where that worked.
Because you could do that, like at Earl Warren Showground. Anywhere where there's a big parking lot, you could do that.
Well, now with the ordinances that are in play, we'll need special
but we're talking to those ordinance people right now and telling them this is a great idea.
Yeah. No, it is a great idea, and so, but everybody needs to be on board with it versus
what are some of the
heads.
Regulations if I want to get into this business?
Very quickly, it's an hour that you can serve. And, realistically, you can't set up, tear down.
What do you mean you can serve an hour?
That's the maximum time that you have.
Per day?
Per day, only 90 days a year. So you're getting 90 hours a year to serve food when that includes setup and tear down. But who's watching that? Is somebody watching you pull up and then watching you leave?
What? So. I don't understand. Why would they care if it's an hour a day?
That's kind of where...
And does that include when you're doing catering?
No, catering is a private thing on its own. If you're inviting a caterer coming into your house for an event,
so being on a street or a parking lot, no more. A public area, no more than
crazy.
An hour at a time.
Right. So whether
90 days a year.
There's street parking or there's being on a private property and selling food that way, and it's on the Santa Barbara city website. A lot of those ordinances and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Our engineer was just talking about a film that I think a lot of people are familiar with called Chef, which was sort of a delightful film about a guy that went to pick up a food truck and it got his son involved and their happy adventures along the way. And you said it makes it look like it's really easy, but it really isn't.
No, it is. It's easy if you have a positive mindset and you really want to accomplish it and you really want to go after it. So.
But you can't just travel place to place. I think in the movie, the guy just goes place to place, right?
City, county, and state are going to want their permits and money and insurance and whatnot.
What in Santa Barbara would be the minimum cost of entry for somebody who's listening to the show and wanting to get involved?
Oh, more than, It depends on the equipment you're going to buy, the facility that you're going to rent from, because you do need to be tied to a commercial kitchen, whether it be a restaurant.
I didn't know that.
Like
I thought you were making it in the food truck.
And then you're not allowed to make and prepare food in your food truck. It has to be prepared, minimally prepared at a commissary.
And that's part of the new regulations, or that was always
that's part of Cal Code. So
well,
that's a state thing.
You have a couple of distinctions, and one I will say, and because I've seen you interact, I know you personally with people. You are like total people person, and you know a ton of people in Santa Barbara, and so you're very personable. So